We're going to talk about the trade war that growing people are concerned about with the U.S. and China heating up. There's this new bipartisan bill introduced in the Senate, could penalize China if it fails to revalue the yuan. Joining us from Capitol Hill is Republican Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas. He is one of the backers of the bill. Senator, thanks for being here.
Happy to join you.
There's a lot of concern that there is a trade war right now, that it would be detrimental to the economy of the United States if indeed we go into one fully. A lot of folks think this kind of bill would indeed do that. Why are you supporting it in light of the concerns about it?
Well, first, to start off with, I don't support a trade war. I'm a free trade person, but one of the fundamentals of free trade is that you allow your currency to move against another currency, so that when you get a situation like we're in right now with China, where you have this huge trade imbalance in favor of China and against the United States, their currency should be appreciating against the United States dollar and ours depreciating, so that you get that back in balance of a trade. And that's what we haven't seen taking place. That's what we're calling for in this bill, is that investigation of whether or not they have artificially held their currency low, which I believe they have, but there has to be a finding. And if they do, then countervailing duties are allowed in this situation to put pressure, more pressure on the Chinese to revalue their currency and let it appreciate.
So, Senator Brownback, most of the people I talk to deal with China say the very worst thing you can do if you want to get something done is try to order them to do something. You have to instead cajole. You have to use back doors. Your bill is kind of directly throwing down the gauntlet. Aren't you ensured that they will refuse to do what it is you want them to do?
How many years have we been cajoling China to revalue its currency? And the last time this effort was pushed, about 2005, they did a little bit of revaluing their currency. They haven't done anything since then. The cajoling hasn't worked, and my experience has been that until you pull out a club and you say you've got to do what's right under international trading rules, they generally don't move.
But, Senator, on the other hand, we need them to buy our treasuries. You know, we are reliant on the Chinese to buy our treasury securities, and a lot of people think that you can't have it both ways. You can't rely on that country to continually buy your debt to keep you afloat, and then demand that they change their economics.
Well, why do they have so much of our currency now? Isn't it because of a huge trade imbalance? And why do we have this big trade imbalance? Isn't a portion of that due to their currency not being allowed to float and appreciate against ours? I mean, clearly it is. And you've got a number of economists saying, you know, if that currency of theirs were allowed to appreciate, you could reduce the U.S. trade deficit $100 billion. You'd create 700,000 jobs in the United States. This is a big core issue. I realize the difficulty within the marketplace and what you're talking about. I'm aware of those items. But still, China has to allow their currency to float against our currency. And until you bring the club out, it doesn't seem like they are interested in even talking or considering it.
Senator, you voted for the Farm Bill. A lot of folks would argue that it's almost contradictory, that is supportive of subsidies and trade barriers, etc. So what do you say to folks who look at you and say this is a bit hypocritical for you to say that China is doing things to subsidize and help its exports and its economy, but you're doing the same thing when it comes to supporting the Farm Bill?
And do the Europeans support their agriculture that we compete against?
Well,
I would love to see
my mother used to say, if everybody jumps off a bridge, are you going to too?
Our farm subsidies down over a period of time. And I support us bringing them down over a period of time, but in an international trade negotiation. And here, we've got a situation where the Chinese, in an international situation, are artificially inflating their currency to artificially deflating it to our detriment.
So do you think this is a case of Congress being the bad cop and the administration being the good cop, and that ultimately they will react as they did in 2005 and allow the yuan to float a little bit?
I do hope that Congress enables the administration to do what's right here, what is to push the Chinese in a very forceful way. Because until that currency really gets reappreciated against the United States currency, we're going to have a lot of trouble.
Why did you vote against the jobs bill this morning?
It's not paid for. I don't know if you've seen our deficit recently, but it's $1.5 trillion. And we've got to start having these things paid for. And we've got a huge fiscal crisis in this country, and it's got to start being paid for.
Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Senator Brownback.